evening everyone, welcome to Keyboard Skills Pro. I'll just bring the camera up here just to prove that I do actually exist. And hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name's Tom, and tonight, let's get the camera in position, we're going to have a little Q&A, a bit of fun with some music, lots of different things, but it's a pleasure to have your company here this evening. I'm sorry about the start, we had the live stream excuse me, all set up. And it turns out if you set a live stream up on a computer, YouTube goes, oh, you're going to use some streaming software. So I went onto my phone and the live stream that I planned didn't come up. So I was like, oh, come on. So this was at 2 minutes. I had to rush back in the house, delete the live stream, and then run back in here and set up the new stream on the phone, which I use for my live streams currently. So anyway, there's quite a few folks joining us. Let me just grab my iPad. And we've got folks on the chat. We've got some great questions we've had from a few folks tonight. But we've got Ben. Good evening, Ben. We've got Steve, one of my online students up in Scotland. Good evening, Steve. Alan from the US. Hello, Tom. Thanks for all the live streams. Thank you, Alan. And hope everything is going well over there in the States at the moment. Obviously, it's as we know, a big few days coming up with the election. Janae has put, how so excited. It originally says the video was deleted and I was quite sad, but now I'm very happy. I've been waiting for 6 to 7 days. Well, Janae, that's lovely. Thank you for being with us. Nick, hi Tom, are we on the improved sound? Well, no, Nick. I'll talk about that in a while, Nick, but a very good evening to Nick and Janet if they're watching. Alan Robinson, good evening, Alan. Very cold and wet Leeds. Alan, it's always cold and wet in Leeds. I'll tell you one thing though, it is blooming freezing here tonight in Suffolk. It is about 3 degrees. We just had a Morrison's delivery turn up from our supermarket, and the guy had his big coat on, and we actually had our first frost this morning, which is exciting. And Harold, Aurora Knox in Germany, very good evening to you all. So what's tonight about? Well, I thought it would be nice. We've done lots of music events. We've done lots of themes. And I thought it'd be nice to have a little musical chat this evening. Any questions that you've got about your music, playing techniques, styles, registrations, anything like that, if you want to put them on the iPad or your computer, just type them in. I've had 1 or 2 come through on email, not a huge amount, but a nice few questions. And I thought I'd give you some hints and tips tonight as well. There's also a chance to just have a little catch up with what's going on in my life in the world of music, and I'm very pleased to bring you some news on what's going to be coming up in the next few weeks. Just incidentally, what we started off there with was the virtual organ, and we started off with on a wonderful day like today, and let me say, it really is a wonderful day when I get a chance to play any organ, any piano, and even more so when we're spending time together here on YouTube. Now, on a wonderful day like today comes from a musical, and it comes from the roar of the grease paint and the smell of the crowd, and the music was written by Leslie Brickus and Anthony Newley, and that particular tune comes from there. It's actually the opening track to my CD Strike Up the Band, and that's was my very first and actually only theatre organ CD album to date. And if you fancy a copy of that, there will be a few adverts tonight, I will forewarn you. But if you fancy a music CD, then you know, there's actually 6 albums to choose from. Several on Lowry organs, a few on Yamaha organs from yesteryear, and one on a really fantastic Wurlitzer, which is Strike Up the Band. And as I say, that tune comes from there. So yeah, so great fun. Lots of things obviously going on in the world at the moment. Here in the UK, for those of you who live in the UK, as you know, tomorrow is the start of yet another lockdown. One of those things we've got to go through, unfortunately. But fortunately, I'm in a position to move my students online. We'll be doing the lessons by Zoom and FaceTime, and also I've got students who I teach around the country, such as Steve, who said hello earlier. Steve's one of my online students, and we also do pre-recorded organ lessons. I've got students in America who I do theatre organ style lessons with. So any of you are interested in lessons, well, we'll tell you some more information about how that works. But yeah, so that's going on. Alan's will, I'll be continuing to work as part of the team at Alan's. Although Alan's Music will be closed as a showroom to the public, they will still be open for sales, tech support. So all you got to do is ring up if you fancy another organ, head to the website. I'm there on Mondays, Tuesdays and Saturdays, and it's always a pleasure to work. Amazing, I've been with Alan's for, how long have I been with Alan's now? 19 and a bit years, so a long time. And I work part-time for them, just 3 days a week, but it's great fun. And it's wonderful to work with Con, the owner, and Trevor and Lucy and Tam, who delivers the organs, and the other guys there. And it's wonderful to meet folks and chat to them and help them, you know, choose maybe their next organ, the one that's right for them. So that's really great fun. And still working at school, been there today teaching. So fortunately for me, lockdown won't be too bad. But I'm very fortunate that I've got all these lovely places and people that work with me, and I obviously get to work with them, which is great fun. So yeah, so wherever you are during the lockdown, please do take care of yourselves. Stay safe. If you've got you know, friends or family who can help you if things are a little bit difficult, but you know, that's all fine. One or two other folks saying, Edward, dear Edward in the US, sorry, Tenerife I should say. Tom, we'll have to leave you now due to a prior engagement in hot Tenerife South, but we'll catch up later. Eddie, thank you, Eddie, that's very kind of you. What else have we got? We'll have, oh, by the way, this evening's not going to be me just waffling away. We will have some music as we go along. So anyway, let's go on to our questions. And I did write a few of these down, and I put them in a pocket. And I've only got 4 pockets, so there you go. You see, we're very organised here. Anyway, so first of all, we had a question from a great patron of mine, Keith. Keith lives in England, and Keith, like Steve, is one of my online organ students, and we have a lesson once or twice a month, and these lessons are pre-recorded. So what we do is here in the studio, I can't show you the studio unfortunately because the camera's all set up, but we have different organs, and we have an organ, a keyboard and a piano here in the studio, and I can use these instruments to do music lessons with people. Now the theatre organ world is something I've always been involved with from a very young age, and excuse me, it gives me a chance to share my, you know, limited experience of these instruments and my knowledge of music and playing them, and you know, gives ideas to people like that. So the pre-recorded lessons are quite fun because it means the lesson can be watched as many times as the person wants. The lessons are uploaded onto a private folder on a OneDrive cloud account. OneDrive is like Google Drive, it's a cloud thing. So it means you can access it at any time with the link from your phone, your iPad, tablet, computer, or anything. And it means that there's a big archive. As long as you're having lessons where you can access all the videos that we've done before. So any of you out there who are interested in maybe having some one-to-one organ lessons or music lessons, you know, just get in touch via the website tomhorton.co.uk and click on the music lesson in the menu, and there's all the details in there. And for folks who live abroad, like I said, I've got about half a dozen students. We've got Thorsten, who's often on here in Puerto Rico. We've got James. We've got who else we've got? We've got Tom. We've got quite a few folks in the US who we do these pre-recorded lessons, and I say it works very, very well. So get in touch via the website if that's of interest. But Keith did ask me to just announce again. Keith should be my publicist, my advertising manager, because he probably wants 5% commission. But he did ask me just to show off my new theatre organ book, which was launched a couple of weeks ago. Theatre Organ Originals Volume 1. This is a new book from myself, and this contains 5 brand new pieces written for the theatre organ. Okay, now this is not a fairly unique book, and there's 5 numbers. It goes over 40 pages. Look, all the music's really nicely laid out. It's professionally printed and ring bound, and also with the book you get a set of registration sheets to help you set up your home organ or theatre organ, and it also gives you performance hints and tips. Now these are actually in stock. I had these printed before the lockdown came in, so I've got them in stock. There's actually been a phenomenally huge number of them already gone out. I've sent books to America, England, Scotland, they've gone to Germany, Finland, Australia, Canada. I'm thrilled with the response to it. But if you've this is the first you've heard about it, 5 brand new pieces written for the let me say the competent amateur organist. In other words, someone who plays at home. How the books work is they're laid out with 4 staves, so that might look a bit complicated, but all it is, look, it's the pedal line, the lower keyboard, the accompaniment, the grey, and the solo. Now, if you've only got 2 keyboards, you just play upper, lower, and pedals, but there's also chord symbols, so that means you can play those without reading the bass, and there's also numbers that suggest where you might want to change registrations. But I can ship the books anywhere in the world. How do you order one? Well, you go to the website, tomhorn.co.uk, where you will also find, let me just do all the advertising first, a collection of 3 piano books entitled Pianistic. Now, Pianistic is a piano series, and each book's got 10 new pieces in. 1 or 2 books have got arrangements in, but they're mostly pieces I've written for the piano. There's Pianistic, without a number, Pianistic Book 1, and Pianistic Book 2. The first book, Pianistic, goes from about grade 1 to grade 3, so kind of beginner sort of stuff, advanced beginner stuff. Intermediate in Book 1, kind of grade 3 to 5, and Book 2 is grades sort of 5 to 8, so that's more advanced stuff. So again, all those books are there, and I'm also in the process of writing an electronic organ keyboard book that's going to be called Power On, and you can get some details on that on the website. But anyway, Keith asked me, first of all, with regards to my theatre organ book, and he has asked would I play a piece for everyone, which I'm delighted he's asked me to do that, so we'll do that in a second. I did say I wouldn't talk too much, but I think I'm going to. And Keith has asked me, who was my theatre organ teacher? I had an organ teacher, a lady called Catherine, and I met Catherine a long time ago in the 90s. Excuse me, quickly blow my nose. And it was, my grandparents owned an organ, and they owned many organs. And when we moved to where we live now, they decided to upgrade their organ to one of the Yamaha EL series. Now, the EL series were a very popular range of organs Yamaha did in the early mid-1990s. There was the EL 90, the 70, the 60, loads of them like that. The flagship was a £30,000 organ. This is back in 1991. It's a hugely expensive organ, and that was the ELX1. And I love that organ. It was my life's ambition to own one of them. Never got there. I've played a few of them, and that was always performed on by the great Max Tucano, who was Yamaha's lead concert artist. And some of you might remember Max Tucano. He used to come over in the 80s and 90s and play the HX organs and all those things. And he used to play with Glyn Madden when Glyn used to play for Yamaha. And I used to go to Allen's. Allen's were a very big, as they still are, a big Yamaha dealer, but they were a big organ dealer when Yamaha used to do organs. And this was before they did Lowry as the main dealer, and so those organs were pretty good. Anyway, so my grandparents decided to buy an EL40, and I remember them deciding whether they wanted to spend £600 extra to put a disc drive in it. So all these things now we take for granted, USBs and organs. Anyway, so off we went to Allen's, and this organ was duly purchased. I wasn't interested in organs at the time. So about eight, I think. Anyway, so this organ turned up at the house, and it was really cool. It was quite a modern styled organ. It had sort of black plastic panel. In fact, tomorrow morning I've got a new student called Alan, who is the proud owner of a very nice Yamaha keyboard, and he's a few months ago he treated himself to a pre-owned EL70, so he wants some help getting into his organ playing. So I've got to try and remember my EL knowledge for tomorrow morning, but that's going to be a real trip down memory lane. And anyway, so this organ turned up at my grandparents' house, and it was all put together, and my grandmother switched it on and she played a few notes, and it really caught my eye because it had this little display screen and a distro, and I was just getting into computers And I thought, wow, that looks really cool. So I asked her, I said, can I have a go on it? Now, I was a typical, not a naughty little boy, but I suppose I was a boy who used to do things that weren't perhaps quite what adults wanted me to do, and got into trouble and clipped round the ear as we did in the old days. But so she said, oh no, it's very expensive, and it was very expensive. You can't have a go on it. And I said, oh, go on. And I said, I want to learn, I want to do it, really want to have a go. So she said, well, you can have a go, but you have to learn properly. So she rustled in a drawer, and out came an organ book, which many of us will remember, Complete Organ Player Book 1, with the hands on the keys, the red book, and that was Kenneth Baker's organ book, which she'd learned to play with, and my grandfather had also learned to play with as well. So back round home I went, and my mum has always tried to get into playing the piano, and we had a very old Yamaha keyboard there from the 80s, and so that was drawn out. So I learnt the C chord and the the G chord, the first two chords, and my grandmother had shown me treble clef and C, D, E, F, G. So about half an hour of back and forth. I'd sort of got a rough version with two hands, and so I went back round and showed her, and she goes, oh, she said, well, that's not bad. So she said, okay, well, she said, tomorrow after school, come round and I'll give you a 15-minute organ lesson. And so then we learnt the next song, which is Largo, and then Lightly Row, and then Jingle Bells, and we worked our way through book 1. And so that's how it all started. And little did I know that sort of 10 years after that organ arrived, I'd be going to start working with Alan's part-time, and still very much delighted to be there. By the way, talking of Alan's, Alan's have a brilliant YouTube channel called Lowry UK. Thoroughly recommend you head on there. Lots of demonstrations on the Lowry organs, but on a Monday morning, Trevor and myself, Trevor the manager, we always do a live stream, and it's like a Q&A music session, and we do things on Verzi organs, Lowry organs, Ringway organs. Do check that out, youtube.com/Lowry UK. On Fridays there's normally a music lesson session with my colleague and friend Lucy. And if you want to get access to even more Lowry, Verzi hints and tips videos, head on to Patreon and search for The Hobby Organist. And you could subscribe to that. It's £15 a month plus VAT, and it's a brilliant collection of hours and hours and hours of organ lessons and hints and tips on Lowry, Verzi, Ringway. And every week, Trevor and myself and Lucy, we record videos to put on there. So if you enjoy my channel, fantastic. If you'd like to support it, head on to patreon.com/Keyboard Skills Pro. You can support the channel every month. The money I get from those folks who support me on Patreon is ploughed back into my YouTube channel. It pays for computers and lights and things. I've got some new equipment coming, which I'll tell you about in a bit. But to answer Keith's question, I had an organ teacher called Kathy. She taught me to play about a year or two after my grandmother. She taught me the techniques and did the exams. The stylistic stuff, I kind of did that a lot myself. But theatre organ, I'm virtually self-taught, Keith. Never had any formal lessons with any organist. I've had a few hints and tips sessions, but in the early days I went to Cotton, played the Wurlitzer. David Ivory used to give me a few hints and tips, and some of you might remember David Stent. David moved to France several years ago. David used to be involved with the Theatre Organ Club. Paul Kerner, he always used to give me some hints and tips when I used to meet him, and people like Peter Haywood. But most of it is just done by listening, watching, copying, imitating, working things out. Probably the only person who gave me probably a few good lessons was my friend and colleague Terry Hepworth. Terry used to have the organs at the Village Experience at Flegborough, where I was very lucky to have 3 years before it closed as a season organist. But in the early days, if I ever visited the village, which was several times a year, Terry would always let me have half an hour on the Compton after his show, which was very kind of him. And that was great, so I got to play this, as a teenager, I got to play this big 5-manual Compton with 29 ranks of Compton and Christie pipes, so that was great fun. Anyway, Keith has asked if we could play, I'm just going to squeeze past the camera here, if we could play a piece from Theatre Organ Originals, and he has asked for the Forgotten Cinema, which I'll be delighted to play now. This is a ballad in the book, and it's all about a cinema that has been shut down for months, maybe a year. It's got dusty, gloomy, and one night the manager, the former manager of the cinema, turns up and he decides to let himself back in. And it's a very melancholy piece. He wanders around and looks at what he used to run and enjoy. And so Keith has asked me, would I play this piece, which I'm delighted to do. So this is from my book, Theatre Organ Originals, composed by myself, Tom Horton, The Forgotten Cinema. Enjoy. There we go, The Forgotten Cinema, from my book entitled Theatre Organ Originals. So thanks so much for listening, folks, and for Keith to set the camera back up for requesting that. So that's my absolute pleasure. I've just picked it up. I've listened to lots of recordings. Terry was a great influence on me to listen to different organists from the old days, because I'd listened to Robert a lot, and organists in the 90s. But he said, well, go back and listen to some of the original players. And he said, have you ever heard of Sidney Torch and Quentin MacLean? And I was like, no, never heard of these guys. And he goes, oh, well, he said, well, in the shop on the way out, he said, I've produced some CDs of audio restored gramophone records of the great organ players, and so every time as a treat my mum and dad would buy one of these CDs, and they were brilliant, you know, to hear how the organs used to sound on recordings, but to hear those great players like Ina Barger and you know, Dudley Savage, and you know, and so it's really interesting to hear different players, those who have gone, those who are still with us. But yeah, I sort of do it in my own way. But there we go. Anyway, Nick has asked. Oh, one or two other people have said hello. Martin, good evening from Spain. Hello, Martin. Lovely to hear from him. Some questions coming in. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, Keith said, Tom, many thanks for playing our request, which was great, and answering our question. Very interesting. Oh, you didn't fall asleep. That's good. All the best, Keith and Susan. Thank you, Keith and Susan. So, what have we got now? My friend Carla. Carla. Ah, dear. I don't see Carla very much, bless her. She's a lovely girl. Carla, I used to know from the Cotton Museum. She's sort of part of the Cotton family of folks on with Jonathan Ling. I'm sure you'll all join me in my best wishes to Jonathan, the owner of the Grange. Jonathan's been in hospital the last couple of days. They thought it was something quite serious, but it turns out he's contracted pneumonia, which is still pretty serious, but he's back home, he's recovering, he's doing pretty good, and he said it was a great shame. He said, because he said, I was, you know, going swimming a few days before, and he just got the first sounds out of the Slough, Granada Slough Wurlitzer, which of course I've yet to still go and play because we've gone into lockdown, but one day I will get my hands on it and hopefully do some videos on it for the channel, but that will probably be towards next year. But I'm sure you'll all join me in sending our best wishes to Jonathan Ling at the Grange Musical Collection to get well and back to full strength soon. But Carla asked, she said, you need a question, okay, can you eat pizza and play the piano at the same time? Yes, I can. I can play with one hand and eat pizza with the other, Carla. I've neglected to ask that the questions had to be serious ones. Norman Dawes, Norman and Dawn in sort of the east part of East Anglia, west part of East Anglia, I should say. Cambridgeshire way. Norman, again, one of my online students, and I often see Norman and Dawes at the Grange and different places when we do concerts. And Norman's asked a question about pedal and left hand. When you start playing pedal and left hand, how would you start with an easy starter pattern and then build on it? Very good question. A lot of organists do like to, when they start, begin with pedals played by the organ. So in other words, automatic bass, okay, automatic bass. And that's fine, learn the chords, but then of course you go to concerts and you see the organist doing this thing with their feet, you go, oh, that sounds really good. And of course, as marvellous as automatic accompaniments are, you're always going to be tied to what the organ has been programmed to play. So you can't decide your own bass notes, you can't decide your own bass patterns if you're just playing the thing. And actually that's how I started. My grandmother, bless her, never learned to play the pedals. So when I first started, I learned to play just the chords, and I had to use the auto bass on the organ. And I remember the first day I went to my second organ lesson. My first organ lesson was, my teacher said, okay, show me what you can do. So I rattled off, I think it was Good Night Sweetheart, and I thought this will impress her. And she goes, yeah, very nice, all in time. And she goes, it's a bit square, but she said, you're playing what's there and that's fine. And she said, right, so she said, what's this thing called? And I said, that's a treble clef. And she goes, right, which hand do we use for the treble clef? And I said, well, normally the right hand. She goes, yep, very good. Now, what's this thing? Pointed at a bass clef. And I said, smiley face on its side. So she laughed and said, yeah, but what's it called? And I said, I have no idea. She goes, okay, do you know how to read any of these bass clef notes? No. She goes, I said, I know they're notes, but I don't know what they are. She goes, okay. And she said, there's another line underneath, look, with another bass clef. She goes, what's that for? And I said, no idea. She goes, okay, what's these things? And I said, well, that's a C chord, that's a G chord. Ah, she said, okay, you're a Kenneth Baker player. And I said, what's that? And she said, well, it's someone who learns to play with the Kenneth Baker books, but then never goes on from just the chords and the right hand. So she said, if you want to learn to play properly, she said, you need to learn how to read bass clef. So the next week I went back to my second organ lesson. She goes, right, Tom, play me another song. So I played Scarlet Ribbons from Book 2. She goes, yep, very nice. She said, it still sounds the same as last week. So she said, that's good, you're consistent. She said, today we're going to have a go at playing the pedals. And I said, oh, good. what are the pedals? And she goes, those sticks on the floor. And do you know what I thought they were there for? This will make you laugh. As a kid, I thought those were there in case somebody knocked the organ, they stopped the organ from tipping over forward. What did I know? And she goes, have you never pressed them? And I said, no, because on the organ at home, when I put the automatics on, it disabled the pedal board. Okay, if I'd have had a Lowry, I'd have pushed the pedals and they would have come in, but I didn't. I had a Yamaha. And yeah, so that's what happened. So she goes, well, push the pedals on this organ. And so I pushed them and the organ went boom, boom, boom. She goes, play them all. And she goes, well, what does it look like? And I said, well, it looks like a little keyboard. And she goes, yes, that's exactly what it is. It's a keyboard for your feet. So she said, right, so you see the C at the bottom? And I said, yeah. She said, when you play the C chord, push that pedal with it. And then I had to sort of learn to retrain my brain, because you have to associate your left hand with your left foot, particularly on the electronic organ and to a certain degree the theatre organ. So she said, okay, well, we'll work on that. So for Norman, what I would say to you first of all, Norman, is when you start playing the pedals with the chords, is begin by simply a static block sound. So the chord and the pedal go together. So C chord, C pedal, G chord, G pedal, A minor, A pedal, and so on. So that's how that works. In terms of patterns, I would then say to you, do 2 presses every bar, so 2 minims. Okay, so go pedal and chord, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then once you've got that, do 4 beats. Dum, 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 dum. Actually play on the beat in 4s. Okay, so that's how I would do that. And how you could do that in terms of playing an example, let's actually bring the camera back down to the organ, our virtual organ, and something a bit like this maybe. So here's the pedal on the floor, look down here. So I would go 1, 2, 3, 4. And what you want to do is practice a little chord sequence, F chord, G7, and it's just 2 to the bar. But you need to do it with a simple song. So get out Kenneth Baker Book 1 and play Jingle Bells. Play on the 1 and the 3. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. And it's going down together, you send it, and literally you've got a rhythm. The left hand and the pedal are locked together, working as an accompaniment. And then once you've got that, then go to 4s. Put them all together, 1, 2, 3, 4. Play the pedal on 1 and 3. So that's an idea. It's a bit like rubbing your head and patting your tummy until you get used to it, but it's just a lot of drilling, over and over and over. It's almost like teaching men how to march in a way. That's what you kind of have to work on. So that would be my suggestions. And I'm going to quickly plug my iPad back in, which I haven't charged, unfortunately. So things like that. But that kind of thing, Norman, we will cover in our lessons. So that's the kind of thing we talk about in lessons, things like that, topics, suggestions, so on and so forth. So yeah, start with holding the chord for the whole bar, 3 beats, 4 beats, and then go to 2s if it's in 4, so go da, da, pedal and chord down together. That starts splitting the bar apart, and then play 4 chords to the bar with the pedal as well if you want, 4s, and then switch it to 4s with 2s. Okay, so go dum, dum, 1, 2, 3, playing the pedal on the 1 and the 3. That works quite well. Quick look at the questions. Harold. Gary's asked, hi Tom, what's your show-off piece when doing a theatre organ concert? Well, that's a good question. That's a tough one. What's my show-off piece? There's a few tried and tested favourites, Gary. Things like the 12th Street Rag, the old piano rag. You can do sort of a bit of the Blackpool jumping stuff a little bit. I don't like to do too much of that, but yeah, you can do a bit of that going on. You can play something a bit more unusual, so something like Kitten on the Keys, Zez Comfrey's number. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of show-off pieces, but if you're doing something nice and lively, it's good to play a nice fast rag, something like that. So that's a good question, Gary. But I'm sure everyone has their own sort of things. What have we got? Janine did ask a question about the Wizard of Oz music. Yes, Janine's put a question on the channel once. Said, could I play some music from the Wizard of Oz? And yes, we will be doing that, Janine, for you. We will do some Broadway music. Because interestingly, I read the other day that Oklahoma is I think 65 years this year that Oklahoma came out. So we'll do some Broadway stuff in another concert. Oh, by the way, folks, as we're going into lockdown, I've decided to return to my weekly live streams for you. Okay, I'm sure some of you will be very pleased to hear that, possibly my wife. But so every Wednesday, whilst we're in lockdown, I'll be in here doing musical events for you. Got some great stuff planned, and I say it's nice to do a Q&A this evening. Yeah, I've got a Broadway thing planned. We're going to do another silent film night. We're going to do another virtual theatre organ concert. We're going to do a jazz trio night. That's going to be good fun. Maybe another request show. So that's coming in the 3 weeks. So I'm just leaning forward to read my iPad, folks. I can't read from this distance. What have we got? Harold in Germany and Mornox. What are the fundamental differences between Compton and Wurlitzer theatre organs? Now I've got to tread carefully now because I'm gonna spread my limited theatre organ knowledge. Well, what's the difference between a Wurlitzer and a Compton? Well, broadly speaking, they are from different schools of organ building, shall we say. The Wurlitzer Company, which was run by obviously the Wurlitzer family, Rudolf Wurlitzer, they came from Germany in the 1800s to America, and they had a history of making band organs. So band organs that you put cardboard books through. Come to the Grange when it reopens, you'll see some of those kind of instruments. I think they made band instruments. Maybe they made. I've seen Wurlitzer acoustic pianos, and I don't believe Wurlitzer had a sort of a pipe organ history. Compton, which was of course founded by John Compton, who had his factory in London, he started out making church pipe organs and eventually cathedral organs. So the Compton Organ Company had an organ heritage, a proper church pipe organ heritage, and they made some very, very fine instruments, many of which still exist. But Wurlitzer came into making those kind of organs because of the relationship that was struck up between the father of the theatre organ, an Englishman called Robert Hope Jones. And of course we all know the story of Robert Hope Jones, this genius man who took and adapted what was basically the telephone exchange of the time in the late 1800s, late 80s and 1890s, and adapting the way that the crossbars and the telephone wires and the low voltage could be used to make solenoid magnets move the pipe flaps to let the air go in. And he did lots of things like tonal development, and the thing of electrifying the organ action. That was one of his early things. But he worked with, I think he worked with Hill and Norman in Norwich for a while. In fact, there are a couple of Hope Jones organs in the city of Norwich. I think one's in a school and one's in a hall somewhere, but there are a couple of examples that survive. But unfortunately, because he wasn't much of a businessman, his efforts would have been better spent in what we would have called today research and development, and let somebody else run the business side. And so he eventually went to America to escape all his problems, and he ended up putting organs over there. And there's a place called, I think it's the Ocean Grove. Anyway, it's a big organ that he put together, which was a symphonic organ. And there's a brilliant letter where he wrote to an organ. He goes, a chum of his, and he said, if you're ever nearby. He said, please do pop in and have a go on this organ. He said, you will be altogether scandalised. He said, it's an organ without diapasons, but with rhythmic and tonal effects. And of course, he developed the tibia. He used the tremulants a lot more. He increased the wind pressures in the pipes and did a lot of things to make the organ more orchestral. So Wurlitzers came along to the place and they looked at this organ. They said, this is a really interesting job, Mr. Jones. Now, Jones had a lot of financial debt and commitment, so he sold a lot of his patents to Wurlitzer, who said, well, you can come and work for us and we'll set you up in the new organ department. So around about 1910, 1915 or so, these first of these Wurlitzer Hope Jones unit orchestras, as they were called, a unit being a row of pipes. So, yeah, you know, that kind of thing. And from there, the organ started to flourish and went alongside this hand-in-glove situation of the cinema industry starting up, the moving pictures, the silent films. And of course, Wurlitzer saw a market. They had a very clever marketing department who came up with the phrase, the best movie houses or picture houses have a mighty Wurlitzer. And, you know, the unit orchestra, you know, play 100 sounds without hiring a band. And so that's how it happened. There are some other main differences between Comptons and Wurlitzers. Wurlitzers use pneumatics at the console pretty much all the way through. So when you press a stop on a piston on the Wurlitzer, it goes thunk. There's a windpipe. Comptons did that in the early days, but Compton were always working forward. So when Hope Jones sort of took his own life, the Wurlitzer development didn't carry on as it would have done. They often say, once you've played a Wurlitzer, you've kind of played a Wurlitzer. They all kind of basically feel the same way. It's just differences in the tone and the room that it's in, but broadly speaking. But Comptons went on to electromagnetic things, so the stops became this lovely click. Compton went on to do synthetic tone development. Interestingly, Compton's tibias were made of metal. I think someone's just mentioned that actually. There's also some fundamental differences between the available ranks and constructions of ranks. For example, Wurlitzer tibia is wooden, which whilst it's made of metal on a Compton, that's very true. So Wurlitzer tibias are normally made of wood. Comptons were made of metal. They do have a slightly different sound. Comptons, some people say, have a slightly more, you can hear the pipe organ pedigree in them, I suppose, in some ways. But they all sound nice in their own way. I know some people who prefer Comptons to Wurlitzers. Some people love Christie's. Some people don't like Comptons. They only want to play Wurlitzers. That's that. I mean, there's a lot of other things that make them a bit more unique, but the basic fundamental idea is the same. But no two are alike. Even Wurlitzers are a little different. When you sit there, yes, it's similar, but the room is different, the acoustics are different, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, all things like that. Looking down the list now, who have we got? Ben's on by Ben Fuller. Hello, Ben. Alan Fuller, I enjoyed hearing about your start on the organ. I'm also self-taught. I learned by reading, listening, and watching. Yep, that's absolutely it. I mean, I did my London College organ exams. This is my diploma from the London College of Music, which allows me to put the letters ALCM after my name, Associate of the London College. But a lot of it is you just learn by listening, copying, and doing. What else have we got? Ben has put, I love organ. Oh, that's good to know, Ben. Excellent. I love the organ as well. Gary's put, what's your favourite UK theatre organ to play? Oh, these are loaded questions. What's my favourite theatre organ in the UK to play? Cool, crikey. I've played some in the past which are no longer accessible or have been broken up. I've played some. Oh, by the way, just before we go any further, if you want to learn more about a slightly more accurate history of the theatre organ, go on to any of the preservation groups' websites. The ATOS, the American Theatre Organ Society, the COS, the Cinema Organ Society. They've got the COS. They've got an excellent "What is a theatre organ?" With lots of pictures and diagrams. That's well worth looking at. Join the COS, join the ATOS, join the Theatre Organ Club. You get magazines, well worth supporting those preservation groups. But some of my favourite organs I've played the Woking Wurlitzer, which is owned by the A2S. That's a lovely organ. I like I've been told by many people that I will love the Granada Slough Wurlitzer at the Grange. Looking forward to that. The Cotton Wurlitzer is a very sweet little organ, one I've probably played the most. The Brentford Music Museum Wurlitzer, I played that once when it was in the church. It's sort of original museum home before it moved. That was often regarded as one of the nicest toned Wurlitzers. I went to Fentham Hall earlier this year to see the COS and played a concert for them. That was a lovely Compton. So yeah, whichever it is, Christie, Compton, Wurlitzer, any of them, I love the opportunity to go and play them. But thanks for the question. So yeah, so it's interesting, but I think that's all the questions actually. I've been waffling on for 50 minutes. Yes, so, Keith and Susan report, very pleased to hear you'll be returning to weekly live streams. Yes, I thought that would be nice to do that. But yeah, but the thing of the organ construction is when you get into learning more about how theatre organs work, it's a very different learning method to playing them, because the business end at the front is the bit you see. But when you start going in the organ chamber and you have to learn about electrics, voltages, wind pressures, pipe lengths. There's a lot of science. I mean, Hope Jones was a very clever guy. How he developed a lot of things, and he did a lot of tonal development. The inventing of ranks of pipes is a very skilled job, building and maintaining pipe organs. So, but as I say, check out the A2S website, COS website, and all things like that. Yeah, so this has been great fun. It's been lovely to have your company. I'm going to sort of finish off now. We'll finish off with another piece of music. But yeah, so I'd say if you fancy supporting my musical efforts during this time, because I will be honest, although I'm surviving, as we're all trying to, my business has been hit. I won't be doing my pantomime theatre shows in January. There are students who can't come for lessons for various reasons. I can't go and play at my local cinema. I can't play concerts, can't do anything like that. So I'm limited to certain places like Allen's and here and so on and so forth. Steve's on. Hello, Steve. Pat and Steve in Cambridge. Lovely to see you both. So if you would like to support me in any way, you can do that, as I say, by visiting patron.com. That allows you to every month tip what I do. It's just like a little musical tip, and it's all ploughed back in. I did say I would. Was it Nick asked about the sound? And the sound and the vision is going to be improving. Recently I've been investing in my equipment, so we've got a new sound mixer coming and also a new video mixer, which will be enable me, I hope, to do even better quality live streams than we've been doing. Just got to wait for that equipment to come and learn how to use it. So in the future we'll be doing a lot more with camera angles, microphones, direct sound from the products in the room, and all things like that. So that's really nice. Yeah, but no, so if you want fancy, treat yourself to a CD, an organ book, a piano book, all these things are in stock. This is how I, somehow make my living. So if you fancy any of those, head over to the website, and which is absolutely fine. One or two of folks. Gary's asked, what console have you got hooked up on your virtual organ? Gary, I've got my faithful EL90. It lives here in the studio. I've had it for donkey's years. And it's just MIDI'd into the computer. It works very nicely. That works really well. There's also a Clavinova and a Yamaha keyboard, which I use for lessons and live streams. So that's what we use. Dave's put, YouTube won't allow web addresses, but check out the Theatre Organ Fact Finder from the COS. That's what we're looking for, yeah. The COS have a very good website, so that's well worth looking at. So, as I say, there's Theatre Organ book, there's piano books, there's music CDs, there's Patreon, and I try and plough as much back into my business to support what I do, but it's thanks to you lovely people who spend your time and occasionally money to support me in what essentially is, to this day, is my hobby. I've got the best job in the world. I get paid to do what I love, and hopefully long may that continue. But for your Christmas lists, if those of you watching, if you fancy For the organist in the house, Theatre Organ Originals, all the piano player, we've got the Pianistic Piano Series. I did say there'd be lots of adverts. But anyway, it's my pleasure to have your company. Thanks for watching. It's been a lot of fun answering your questions, and thanks so much for that. Do stay safe wherever you are in the world. And if you just want to have a chat sometime, just send me an email via the website. I'll always reply. But do check out the channel, Keyboard Skills Pro. Maybe share it with your friends. If you've got friends who like to play and learn, share my channel with them. It'd be lovely if they watch the videos. Please do subscribe, hit the little bell so you know when I'm live or if I'm uploading new videos. But anyway, there we go, folks. So thank you so much for watching. I'll put the camera back down. I need to go past the camera first because I can't get my fat body through. And I will wish you all the very best. Do stay safe as we go into lockdown tomorrow here in the UK. Those of you in the US, please do take care as the election results come through. So my wife, who is American, is keeping close tabs on the progress with our friends, Mr. Trump and Mr. Biden. We'll see what happens there. But as I say, the organ books and the piano books, I can ship those worldwide. And I say quite a lot of them have already gone around the world. But let's finish off with a couple of numbers in a medley. This is what I call a feel-good medley, which I hope you will enjoy. So do smile and clap along. Thanks for watching, folks, and we will see you next week for another live stream. Every Friday is a music lesson or a vintage sheet music or something like that, and every Tuesday we have 2-minute tips. So there's lots on the channel. Hit that subscribe button and ding that bell. Enjoy your music, folks, and we'll see you soon. Good night.